people are throwing out flyers like way too early, like totally just abandoning like value running backs in the middle and just saying fuck it. And this is where Ronald Jones winds up in the fuck it section.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Football. I am your host tonight. My name is Nick Walsh, and I am here with someone who seemingly by the sounds in my headphones just cracked a White Claw. I am here with Vinny Gonzalez. Vinny, what's up, dude?
What's going on, Walsh? It's a pleasure to be here as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too much is going on at this point. I am unfortunately not drinking White Claws. I'm drinking beers. Life is hard. But, you know, it is what it is. Guys, we are here to do part 2 of the NFC South. That will be the Panthers and the Bucs. So make sure to keep a very close ear for all the knowledge, or ear out for all the knowledge that you're about to receive, I guess. I don't know. That was like the weirdest possible way to word that, I think. But we're going to roll with it. Vinny, before we really get into this, I do want to take a moment to mention Auction Draft. Auction Draft is the best site for running your fantasy football auction league in 2018. You can sign up now and get on the list for launch by going to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/auction draft. And the promo code there is Let's Talk Fantasy. That's all one word, all lowercase. That'll give you 25% off for your auction league. So, Vinny, we've got a couple interesting players here. Particularly, I think one of them in general on the Panthers, I have a lot of mixed opinions on, so I'm excited to get yours. But let's jump right into the Panthers, and then we'll finish up with the Bucs here. So Vinny, Cam Newton. He's going quarterback 7. That's the 9th pick in the 7th round. I never get Cam right. I don't know. I think he's going to have a bad year. He has a good year. I think he's going to have a good year. He has a bad year. Are you just drafting him for his ceiling at that point and figuring you can drop him? Like, what do you think?
Cam is always Cam. I think that's the underlying thing that we've always gone to time and time again. We haven't called Cam right a single time on this podcast. I think as a total conglomeration of all of us. So it's tough to call Cam, and then it's acceptable where he's going. It's okay. I think Cam has that ceiling to be QB1, and then at the very worst, I think he'll be top 7, and you're getting him 7th round. So if you're comfortable with what's going on and you like Cam's upside, and go for it. I really don't have much else. I just got to go with Cam if you want to go with Cam. They really brought in some guys that they finally tried to get some weapons around Cam. I think the addition of McCaffrey is huge. I think that's very good for Cam. Even C.J. Anderson coming in too. I love that for the balance of the offense, and I think that it's not going to matter at the goal line at all either, because as we've seen, Cam will just do Cam stuff at the goal line. It doesn't matter. So he'll get his always. So I think this is probably where Cam Newton will just go forever, just like this sort of mid-range area. So
that's pretty fair.
If you want to pull the trigger, go for it.
It's worth noting, and I should have mentioned this, that Norv Turner is now the offensive coordinator.
Does that I don't know. I wasn't even like excited about that. Like, how old is he now? 70?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't like really know what to think. Norv's a guy who, he's always been a pretty good offensive coordinator, but I don't know how his offense works with a guy like Cam. Because Norv is a guy who loves those short to intermediate routes. Loves targeting running backs out of the backfield, loves targeting the tight end on shorter routes. Whereas Cam's historically been a guy who's more sort of on that intermediate to deep route type of thing. He's going to air the ball out. He's going to throw it into tight coverage downfield and not give a fuck. I'm wondering how those two are going to mesh. I'm wondering how Cam's rushing production is going to be affected by that, because Norv's never really had a quarterback with that kind of rushing potential. So I'm never going to take a quarterback in those mid rounds unless I really think it's just so many guys that you're passing up. I don't know. That's a cop out answer, but I can't take a quarterback in the 7th round who has the potential to, just not even be startable half the time.
Yeah, he's very volatile too. We've seen that. Like he'll have blow up massive game, like 40-point games, and then all of a sudden he's getting 12. And you just can't really understand. It's like, how do you not put like he has every facet of the game in his arsenal. He just cannot put it together consistently. I think that was except for that one year where he blew up and was obviously quarterback one. Pretty sure he was number one fantasy player overall. That was 3 years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So there's always going to be that. Just sitting there with Cam's potential. And I do think he can get back there eventually. It's just we'll never know what year it's going to be. And you probably won't even while you're playing him during that season. Just like, when is this going to stop? So it's always tough to draft Cam. I don't think I've ever owned him, but it's always super appealing.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that I could see myself owning if he slips a couple rounds. Like maybe I'm sitting in the 9th round. I'll take a risk on Cam. Okay. 7th round for me is a bit too rich for my blood. I really just can't do it. But it's possible that you take him in the 7th round and he really pays off for you. I guess it's really a matter of preference there. Let's move to the backfield where this is the guy I was kind of alluding to before was Christian McCaffrey. He's currently going as the 6th pick in the 2nd round. That's running back 11. That's really high. But Christian McCaffrey
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the guy who I kind of like. I'm not sure. I have a lot of like opinions on him in both directions, and I'm really not sure what my take should be. But Christian McCaffrey is going that high up. He's not going that high up for his how good of a rusher he was, because he was pretty awful on the ground last year. But he had 113 targets that led to 80 catches. And anytime you've got a running back catching the ball 80 times in PPR leagues, you've really got a chance to have a productive player. So what do you think about Christian McCaffrey at that ADP?
So I've kind of actually come around to him. That's why I was surprised where you were not really down with it seems. But I think that so many running backs are going before him that this ADP is almost forced. Like there's no value to be had with running back early. And Christian McCaffrey's creeping on that area, especially in PPR, where, like you said, he had 80 catches, and that's something that's probably going to be there again. I mean, Jonathan Stewart was still there, got over 200 carries, probably, some decent work, not a lot, but in the receiving game, he got a little bit too. So there was plenty to go around in that backfield, and I don't think much changed with the addition of C.J. Anderson. I think things sort of stay the same. I think Anderson is he's going to be more valuable to the Panthers overall. And I think it's going to bring more opportunities to McCaffrey in turn. So I think the price is almost perfect for him. It's just maybe on the richer side for us because we like other guys more, like the wide receivers in that 2nd round range that are more elite at the position. But running back dries up real thin, real quick. And McCaffrey's one of those dudes I think you can depend on, especially in PPR. I think his value is going to pretty much stay the same, if not go above what he did last year.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. It's not that I'm not down with it. I don't know. I have my reservations because the CJ Anderson thing does scare me a little bit. CJ Anderson's been a productive rusher in his career. Christian McCaffrey, on the other hand, averaged 3.7 yards per attempt last year on the ground. So not great. CJ Anderson's shown that he can be an effective running back. And then the other thing that sort of scares me is they drafted, and we'll talk about him more in a couple minutes, but they drafted DJ Moore, who's a guy who's sort of known for running these underneath routes, running stuff out of the slot, quick passes, that sort of thing. The year before, they drafted Curtis Samuel, who's the same sort of wide receiver, where, comes and runs these short to intermediate routes. Are you worried that eats into Christian McCaffrey's work at all, or do you think he gets his no matter what, and those other guys kind of get pushed out?
I'm not worried about DJ Moore really at all. Like, as you said before, they had Curtis Samuel. They tried to integrate so many guys, like speedy gadget guys last year, and it just the offense wasn't having it. And so I'm really not too worried about that. I think McCaffrey's going to get his. And in terms of CJ Anderson, like, I'm not worried at all. And I love CJ Anderson. I think he's going to be effective. I think he's going to be a great 1-2 for this team. And I really like what they did with bringing him in because Jonathan Stewart was washed as shit. He's gone now, and now they bring in Anderson, who we've always thought was, pretty good. And he just had 1,000 yards on a terrible Broncos team that was trying to force him out all year with trying to get the other guys involved. And now he comes into an offense where they'll integrate him immediately. He has his role cut out for him. It's going to be exactly what Jonathan Stewart was able to do. He got 200-plus carries. So I think you're going to look at that with C.J. Anderson as well. And he's going super late for a running back too. And I think the value is going to return tenfold with C.J. Anderson in these drafts.
That's definitely fair. For me, C.J. Anderson, he becomes one of those guys who's sort of like a bye week fill-in that you're hoping is going to rush for a touchdown because I'm not sure that he really has any passing game value. But he will get the goal line work, you would assume, because McCaffrey was just horrendous in that role last year when he had the chances. So I would think C.J. Anderson is the kind of guy where either you've got an injury or you've got a bye week and you need someone to fill in. You're going to play C.J. Anderson, hope he gets the 60 yards rushing or whatever it may be, and then punches one into the end zone. If he doesn't, it'll be a bit disappointing. If he does, you ended up with a good week. So, at his current ADP of 8th pick in the 8th round, running back 40, I think that's more than fair for that kind of player.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like last year, I was taking C.J. Anderson very high. I think it was like 5th, 6th round. Now it's kind of corrected. He's coming on the back end of the 8th, so it's very acceptable. That's probably his floor is going to be good. His ceiling is decent. Also, injuries could happen too, so he's a nice guy to have on your team.
Yeah, that's a good point. If McCaffrey were to get injured in any way, you would think C.J. Anderson would be the guy there. The other running backs on the roster right now are Cameron Artis-Payne is still hanging around. They do have Elijah Hood, who I'm partial to because he was initially an undrafted free agent or signed by the Raiders. He is a big bruiser. He's like 240 pounds, and I think he's awesome. But I don't think he's going to play much of a factor on the Panthers this year. And then Kenyon Barner still hanging around, but that doesn't really matter too much either. Let's move to wide receiver, where we talked about DJ Moore a little bit, but the number one wide receiver on this team is Devin Funchess. He's currently going as the 12th pick in the 7th round. That's wide receiver 35. He finished the year last year as PPR wide receiver 21. Do you think he should be going this late?
I don't know if he should be going this late, but I do think it's appropriate. And it's probably how I view Funchess' value, like dead on, like myself. So this is the first ADP where I'm like, that's where I would take him. And it's not even like fair to his what he did last year, but it's just like it kind of evens out with the guys that are going around him. So I accept this value, and I think it's pretty dead on. Okay,
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, when he was really producing last year, it was sort of just like, hey, man, he's all they got. Like Greg Olsen was hurt. Christian McCaffrey was getting his targets out of the backfield, but they really didn't once they traded Kelvin Benjamin, Funchess was kind of the only wide receiver that they had to throw to. Curtis Samuel was hurt most of the year as well. So, yeah, I don't see him really getting to the heights that he got to last year. I see a big rebound season for Greg Olsen more likely than that. But yeah, I mean, Funchess is a guy who should be owned. He's going to be the guy primarily getting downfield, running those crossing routes, maybe like right in front of the safeties, that sort of thing. I still don't think he's particularly good, but hey, if he gets the opportunity, this is about right for him.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I think I doubted a lot. And then when he started performing, I tried to figure out oh no, he's bad. This is just circumstance. And I guess that's kind of what you were hinting at too. But I think this value is still fine. I don't know if it's going to go up or down. I hope it kind of stays where it is, but this is the Funchess zone. I'm fine with where it is.
The Funchess zone. Yes, we are in the Funchess zone.
Dude, it is. It's like late 7th round to the 9th round, like wide receivers. That's like the Funchess zone. Like take the risk, or take that floor too. It's pretty much the same.
I guess you're right. So then let's talk a little bit about DJ Moore. He's currently going last pick in the 9th round. That's wide receiver 44. I mentioned before he's a speed guy. He's kind of like an athletic freak type guy. They drafted him out of oh my God, why can't I remember this? In Maryland, Jesus. So they drafted him out of Maryland. He's a speed guy, but he's not really like a straight line blow the top off the defense as much as a guy who's going to work in those close quarters. I don't really understand the pick. I don't really understand where he fits in on a team that just drafted Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel. And I'm not sure, like, he's being drafted, at the back end of the 9th round. Are we sure he's going to start over Torrey? Like, in 2 wide receiver sets, Is he going to be out there, or is Torrey Smith going to be out there?
This was going to be my question. Like, what the fuck's up with his ADP? I don't understand how that even formed. I think Torrey Smith would absolutely start over him.
Yeah, I mean, I get he's a first-round pick, and, like, he was the 24th pick. They invested capital into him. They'll likely want to use him. John Ross was, like, the 12th pick in the draft last year, and that guy didn't want to
talk about that, man. Relax.
I'm just using it as a comparison for why you might want to pump the brakes a little bit on DJ Moore in your drafts, at least definitely until we get an idea of who's running with the ones with the Panthers. So if we come out and in every 2 wide receiver set, it's Devin Funchess and DJ Moore, sure, take him at the back end of the 9th round. But until we get to there, I really can't justify this draft spot at all.
Yeah, I don't understand it. And it kind of seems like the Panthers might have been taking insurance for the Curtis Samuel pick that they had. And since he got, forget, was it Achilles that he suffered during the season?
Not sure exactly.
I want to say Achilles, but that could be why they took him, because he's kind of the same Phil and Gadget sort of deal. So
he had a leg fracture.
Oh, who am I thinking of then with the Achilles? Either way, it seems like insurance for that.
That's fair. And I mean, they also brought in Jarius Wright, who's been a decent slot man, a decent guy, to work in close quarters, that sort of thing. So to me, there's a lot of competition for that sort of role, and I'm not even sure that DJ Moore has that role. So I don't know. We brought up Torrey Smith as a guy. Do you think there's any argument for him getting drafted, or am I completely off the reservation?
Torrey Smith is Ted Ginn, so he doesn't have to be drafted, but you can bye-week fill him. You can pick him up during the season, and that's pretty much how I view that.
Yeah, you're right. I'm 100% going to play him 1 to 3 weeks of DFS as a $3,000 receiver on DK, but that's about it.
and regret the fuck out of it. Just why?
Regret it 2 weeks, and then the 1 week I'll be like, hell yeah, I hit it, but then I won't hit the rest of my team for whatever reason. But anyway. That's a little too inside baseball, I guess. Let's move on to tight end. Greg Olsen is going as tight end number 5. That is the 12th pick in the 5th round. Obviously, he was not around for a lot of last year after getting injured. Do you think this ADP is fair? Do you think it's too high, too low? I don't know. What's your opinion here?
It's not fair. It's too high, and it's incredibly name-based. And I feel like Greg Olsen's always tight end 5 in ADP. And that is pretty much where he is, because I feel like people can't justify taking the guys going behind him until Greg Olsen has left the board. So I feel like he's that threshold from the elite guys that are there, and then Greg Olsen's kind of fading, and then the rest of the guys that you take risks on. So there's no way in hell I would ever pay this ADP for Greg Olsen. I don't think anybody should. This is beyond his ceiling, I think, at this point. I think you mentioned a rebound season for Greg Olsen. I want to hear the justification for that.
So what I said was I thought there was a better chance of a Greg Olsen rebound season than Devin Funchess finishing at wide receiver 21 again.
Okay, so that's not as bad as I remember you saying.
No.
I'm going to bring that up later.
For what it's worth, I don't think either thing is particularly likely. I think you're probably right on Greg Olsen. I mean, he'll be 33 years old this season. He's coming off an injury. He's playing for a team that, as we just mentioned, has invested in a shitload of weapons in the passing game since he was, a 120 target a year guy. So I think he'll probably be, not the worst tight end. He'll be a guy worth owning. He'll get 100 targets. Drafting him in the 5th round seems outrageous to me.
Wild.
It's one of those things where I think if you don't get like the guys going before him, like the Gronks, the Zach Ertz, the Travis Kelce's, Like, if you're not getting one of those guys, then just fucking wait. Just fucking cool it for a little while. Take Jordan Reed or something like later on in the draft. Like, throw a dart at some guys. I don't know. Like, don't take Greg Olsen in the 5th round.
Yeah, that time has passed. This is like old timey. This is very old timey, like Greg Olsen at 5. Like, stop doing it.
Your friend who like was really into football like 5 years ago, but has been spending like the past several years just slowly getting further and further out of it. Like, they're the kind of person that takes Greg Olsen in the 5th round because of the name recognition, as you said. It's you're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football in June, so you're not taking Greg Olsen in the 5th round.
You know better, listener.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. You got anything else on the Panthers or any of their players this year?
No, I think we hit on everything.
All right, cool. Before we move on to the Bucs, let's get a quick word from Auction Draft. All right, guys, that was Auction Draft. Make sure you are checking them out. Again,
Auction Draft is the best site for running your fantasy football auction league in 2018. You can sign up now and get on the list for launch by going
the big
to
news hit today. I mean, it was like kind of like an open secret, I guess, but Jameis Winston is suspended for 3 games for allegedly groping an Uber driver. I don't know. It's one of those where the guy just can't seem to like get out of his own way, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Because I don't know. I watched Jameis on Hard Knocks too, and I was like, this guy seems great. Why is he like stealing crab legs and groping Uber drivers? He seems like a nice leader for the football team.
He seems like the kind of guy that just like, he's probably like a very well-intentioned and good guy, and then just like gets drunk and loses his shit. It's like, it's one of those, because you would assume in both of those situations he was drunk. I think definitely in this one, but I don't know.
Who takes an Uber sober? Yeah, definitely. Man.
Yeah, no, you just drive places if you're going to be sober. But anyway, Jameis is suspended for 3 games, so we are getting Ryan Fitzpatrick starting NFL quarterback in 2018. How about that? I know.
Hell, every year he plays like 3 games a year. It's wild.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how that goes. The ADP hasn't really had time to adjust, but Jameis Winston was going QB 20, 5th pick in the 13th round. I think there's, with this suspension kind of, on the way, I don't think there's a reason to draft him unless you're in a league where everyone takes 2 QBs, that kind of thing, and you really like Jameis and you want to stash him. For what it's worth, I think he was a draftable quarterback until this suspension, but like, what's the point? I don't know.
Yeah, he was the king of the floor for a long time, like sitting pretty at 15 most weeks, but he was a project QB for fantasy, I think, for a while. And now it's kind of reaching that awkward stage with the Bucs. I feel like it's going to be, I think he'll probably get like the 1-year extension, maybe like the prove it year after this, and then we'll see what Jameis Winston's future is. But for right now, yeah, don't draft him. That's really all I got. I guess we could talk about the effect from Ed's question.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So we have Ed's question of the week. Does Jameis Winston's suspension move Mike Evans down your draft board? No, not for me.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And to be honest, Evans is going super late too. Another disrespected guy, I feel like.
Yeah, I think
enjoying
he's
the elite ranks.
I think he's a little bit undervalued there at wide receiver 9. We'll get to him in a couple. Well, let's just talk about him now.
Yeah, definitely.
He's going at the 11th pick in the 2nd round, wide receiver 9. I don't think he moves down my draft board because I thought he was a little bit undervalued to begin with. He had 9 targets a game last year. He was 13th in the NFL in red zone targets. He had 20 of them. And he only got 3 touchdowns on those 20 red zone targets. He had 5 touchdowns total. So I think he's a big candidate for another case of positive touchdown regression, where Mike Evans, 2 out of his 4 years, has had double-digit touchdowns. It's not something out of the realm of possibility for him, and he doesn't even have to get there. He just has to do better than he did this year. So I think he's I don't see his targets really going down at all. He's going to sit somewhere between 125 and 140 targets. And I think he has a chance to catch double-digit touchdowns, and that's a good wide receiver for me.
Yeah, with Mike Evans, it's never been about like he doesn't get enough targets or opportunities. It's just about if they're going to hit with touchdowns. So that can, as we've said many times, will flip immediately. So he's literally done the Calvin Johnson plan where it's just like, I'm going to catch a lot. Now I'm going to catch like 4. Then I'm going to catch 12. So he's on the up and down on the touchdown scale for now. I think Fitzpatrick coming in for the first 3 games is, I don't know, Jameis hasn't played like in an elite level. So downgrading to Fitz is like a very minimal move from Winston to Fitz. So I think you'll be okay. He'll probably see a lot of targets, a lot of crazy passes from Fitz deep, but that's a good thing in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, Fitzpatrick is a relatively inaccurate guy who's kind of willing to just throw the ball. Mike Evans has a big frame and will go up and get the ball. I don't see how it's too big of a downgrade in that sense. I think Fitzpatrick is willing to make risky throws, and that gives Mike Evans a chance to go up and get some of those balls. So yeah, I'm about it.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if like people will just see that Jameis is gone for 3 games, and if Mike Evans falls to the 3rd, man, I don't know what's going on in fantasy anymore. Julio and AJ in the 2nd, fucking Evans sliding to the 3rd. Too much change so quick. It's just we're overcorrecting a lot.
Yeah, I was looking through the wide receiver ADP for the 2nd and 3rd round. I will be taking wide receivers in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, like without a doubt. Like, dude,
I might do the 3, just like 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. Just who cares?
Yeah, I think if you're taking running backs in those rounds, like outside of specific situations, but like god damn, there are so many wide receivers that we know are going to be consistently good in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. It just blows my mind. That's kind of a discussion for another day, I suppose. But since we're on wide receivers, let's stick with the passing game, and then we'll finish up with running backs. Deshaun Jackson is going the 11th pick in the 13th round. That's wide receiver 60. They also have Adam Humphries and Chris Godwin. Godwin is a guy who a lot of people seem to think they will want to get more snaps. If you look at Deshaun Jackson's production from the last 2 years, wide receiver 60 is insanely undervaluing him. But you kind of have to wonder if his role is going to decrease based on guys like Chris Godwin and then guys like OJ Howard and Cameron Brate maybe increasing their roles. So what do you think about Jackson there?
I think Jackson is like maybe a tier or 2 above like Torrey Smith and Ted Ginn. Like he could catch the bomb, but he also does a lot more. And with Fitz last year, so for the first 3 games I'm just talking about right now, for the immediate future, he played pretty well with Fitz when he was in last year. So I don't know if you have to worry about that too early, but I don't necessarily know if you're going to be playing Deshaun Jackson in the first 3 weeks of your fantasy season. You might be in pretty rough shape then, especially with this ADP. Like you said, it's extremely undervalued, and I think he can easily creep into like the top 30. Not that that's amazing, but he can be a decent flex fill-in for you. And he's going later than the guys that we've talked about in the podcast, like these rookies and just guys that we're just not sure their workload. And Deshaun Jackson is obviously – it's weird that he hasn't lost a step. He's still insanely like one of the top 3 fastest guys in the NFL. So he's still got the talent, still got the speed. I don't know if I'm necessarily worried about like Humphries or Godwin. It's more the tight ends, and I think that will probably play more into when Jameis gets back than Fitz. I feel like Fitz was kind of ignoring them last year when he was playing. I think he was spreading it more around to Evans and Jackson during that time.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, for perspective, Deshaun Jackson had 190 targets over the past 2 years. He was really efficient in 2016. He was extremely inefficient in 2017. If he kind of evens out a little bit, I think he's worth more than that ADP. I agree with you that I don't know that Humphries and Godwin need to be drafted. I think depending on injuries, different situations, I think either of them could be guys that you should pay attention to on the waiver wire this year. But we'll see how all that kind of works out. With the tight ends, do you have a preference on them? OJ Howard is currently going tight end 15. That's the 11th pick in the 13th round. Cameron Brate is currently going undrafted. I don't really want to target either of them because I don't know who the fuck's going to produce from week to week. So yeah. I don't know. Do you have a strong opinion on them?
I think my preference lies with Brate, but I'm with you. Like, I don't really. Obviously, I think OJ Howard's getting drafted on him being drafted in the first round by the Bucs a year ago, and his talent is way higher than Brate. But it was weird that they signed Brate to like a $41 million contract for 6 years.
Yeah, they kept him around for a lot of money.
That's why I'm looking at like OJ Howard has a price, and guess who fucking doesn't? Cameron Brate, and he's had some chemistry with Winston. And it's shown on the football field, man. It's just Brate is a good football player who will, for whatever reason, perform. And it's just that, they obviously paid him right away. And it's a little concerning, I think, for OJ Howard. I don't know why you'd go after Howard when you can get Brate for free.
Yeah, I mean, not that you're really paying much for Howard, 11th pick in the 13th round. Right. Like, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of just preference. But, like, I don't see how – unless I'm like completely missing something, I don't see how or why you would have a preference between the two, like a strong preference, like rather than just like, oh, I kind of prefer this guy, to be like, all of my faith is in OJ Howard, or like, I believe Cameron Brate will be a top 12 tight end this year. It's like, well, why? Why the fuck would you think either of them are going to be top 12 tight ends this year?
I don't think either of them will break the top 10, which is crazy because like tight end is deep and gross as usual, and I don't think either of these guys will crack just because they'll be eating at their own values.
Yeah, it's just one of those where it's really difficult to predict right now, even season long, and I think week to week it's going to be even more of a headache. So I'm trying to stay away from both. Going back to our previous podcast, I think I would take both Benjamin Watson and Austin Hooper over the two of them.
Yeah, I wish we could make some sort of bet, but I'm with you. that makes so much sense to me, and I feel like we're on the same page with that one, like dead on.
Yeah, just two tight ends who I know are the tight ends for the team.
Yes.
Like that's the only reasoning there. But
because when you play Howard or Brate, you're just like, who is going to get 30 yards in that touchdown? Because it might be one, it could be none of them.
Like how much is it going to suck when you play Cameron Brate and then OJ Howard gets 2 touchdowns on like 3 targets? Like how much is that going to suck? It's going to suck a fucking lot.
And to be honest, it happened last year. Like they were going back and forth. Like they both had their playable games, and they were both kind of peaking around the same like ownership value, but. It's way too close for comfort, man. You can't pick.
Yeah, we don't. I think one of the biggest lessons in fantasy football that it took me a long time to learn was that you don't necessarily want playable. You want playable and predictable. And in this case, you're not getting predictable, at least not in a way that I can see at this point in time. Since we skipped over the running game, let's get back to that. We have Ronald Jones. He's the first guy going off the board here for the Bucs. He is running back 24, first pick in the 5th round. Ronald Jones is a 2nd round running back out of USC. And then we have Peyton Barber, first pick in the 14th round, running back 58. Jaquiz Rogers and Charles Sims are also on the roster. I don't really understand any of this shit. Do you?
I was going to say, me and Don were discussing, God damn it, what's his name? Running back for the Broncos.
Royce Freeman.
Royce Freeman, is right there. So we were discussing that, and I was kind of having the same problem. Like they're all going in the same round, and like Sony Michel from the Patriots too, going around that same. It's just like people are throwing out flyers like way too early, like totally just abandoning like value running backs in the middle and just saying fuck it. And this is where Ronald Jones winds up in the fuck it section because there's so many people here. Like there is Ronald Jones who they brought in. Peyton Barber, who hangs around even though he's like mediocre to okay. Jaquiz Rogers, who is old and, decent. Charles Sims, who's a 3rd down dude who they've tried to implement year after year after year and cannot do it, and he will still be in that role. He'll have his games, whatever, but it's just there's so many people here, and I cannot see a 5th. He's the first pick in the 5th round right now. That makes no sense to me.
Dude, with Ronald Jones, like, I was like doing my research on this shit, and like I don't do a ton of pre-draft research on these guys. Like I kind of normally see where they land, and then look into what made them, like a 2nd round pick in the case of Ronald Jones, that sort of thing. So normally it's like, oh, like they must be like a good athlete. And I look at Ronald Jones, it's like, oh, he ran a 4.6 40. Okay, kind of weird. So I guess he must be a bruiser then. Oh no, he's 5'11", 205 pounds. Okay, so then he must be a really good pass catcher. No, he caught 14 passes last year in college. Oh, so then they gave the ball to him a lot, and he's like really durable. No, they say he's likely going to have like a 12 to 14 touch ceiling like per game this year. I'm like, what the fuck is the attraction of this guy? He sounds like the most jag fucking guy. Like there's nothing special at all about him. Besides the fact that like he was pretty good in college. Like I don't. And maybe there are people who have done way more research into this and are way more fluent in sort of running back prospects and really have strong opinions on him. But like based on the cursory research that I did on this guy, I don't get what the fuck he's good at. I don't get what the fuck he brings to the table.
It's so funny because like my research was like about as not even as thorough. Mine was very lazy. I was just like, oh, this dude is basically Peyton Barber 2.0. And that's basically what they brought him in to be. And people are just like, he'll be the lead back. Like, why do you say that? Just like, they drafted him as a rookie. I'm like, that happens to a lot of people. You need to have something else to say after that. And you just nailed every single one of them as like a non-factor. It makes no sense. They're going to be a running back by committee. It's going to be disgusting. They're going to be a bad fucking team. It makes no sense.
That and like Dirk Cutter has shown that like he's willing to give Jaquiz Rogers 25 carries a game for no reason. Like
they had Doug Martin slaying the Patriots in his return game, and they kept him on a snap count. That is what Dirk Cutter is.
I don't know, man. I just this whole backfield is gross. I don't want a single part of any of it. Watch me draft like certain parts of it too, but like, fucking, Sims. Just Ronald Jones in the 5th round. Like, why? Just give me one. Like, I want someone to give me one reason why. Okay. Like the only reason he got drafted in the 2nd round, right? That's it.
Yeah, and like to be honest, there's a huge running back cliff, but there's no reason where you shouldn't take like any of the fucking wide receivers going like Brandon Cooks, Marvin Jones, Jarvis Landry, Chris Hogan. Dude, get your shit straight. You do not have to take Ronald Jones in the 5th round at all or ever. Like you don't have to take him this draft. I don't think he should be draftable.
I mean, if you look at the guys after him, and I know we just kind of buried some of these guys, but like Mark Ingram, Lamar Miller, Royce Freeman, Deion Lewis, Tevin Coleman, Marlon Mack, Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen's going like a round and a half after this guy. Kerryon Johnson, Chris Thompson, Carlos Hyde, Rex Burkhead. What are we doing?
Dude, CJ Anderson is going basically in the 9th round. He's 808 right now. That is, dude, just do something different. You do not have to take this guy. Don't like, there's a cliff, yes, but you do not have to make the cliff yourself with these guys. Do not like you're just not solving the problem. You're just making it a problem. It's terrible. Do not do it.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see how his ADP changes throughout the offseason, that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think we've yelled about the Bucs running back situation.
You know what's funny? I just the second you were like saying that, I was like, this guy is going to be Dalvin Cook. Like,
yeah, right. Watch him come out and just be great.
Shred.
Right? But see, even with Dalvin Cook, it was like, man, his college production was like unreal.
Fantastic. It was amazing.
With Ronald Jones, it's like I really just unless he's like the single most like solid like to me, like based on the scouting report and like everything that I've read about him, he has to be the kind of guy where when there's no hole, he falls forward and coaches are like, he fell forward. He didn't try to cut it up. And like, like fucking John Fox is just like jerking it on the sidelines and this guy falling forward, that kind of thing. But like,
Jeremy Hill-esque, just like, dude, he never loses a yard. It's like, yeah.
Man, that guy really knows how to fall for 1 yard.
Finish that run that did not get blocked for you at all.
You're right. We're absolutely burying this guy way too much, and he's probably going to end up being great. But at this point in time, I don't fucking get it. Anyway, that's the Bucs. You got anything else on the Bucs?
Man, we always close strong. I got nothing, man.
Seriously,
I'm fine with that.
I got riled up. I need to smoke a cigarette or something. Jesus,
I am sweating so much. It's my house is 100 degrees. I'm so riled up from that.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning into the NFC South. We're going to do the NFC West next week because I told Donnie we would do it this week, and then we didn't do it this week. So we're going to do the NFC West. I'm going to try to be a part of that because I want to answer Donnie's questions for him. Donnie, if you're listening to this, we love you. Kind of. And so keep an eye out for that, guys. For Vinny, I am Walsh. This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Later, podcast.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.